Well, it's hello from him,
Richard Moore, and it's hello from her,
Michelle Monroe, and here we are again. Are you all right?
Oh, I'm not so bad. I'm battling on as ever.
Aren't we all, I tell you. Well, last month, of course, we saw Dad taking an overseas posting in the army. So he was stationed in Hong Kong with the Royal Engineers, and there he discovered this profitable sideline. Well, Daddy always had one, you know.
Oh, yes.
this time singing in local talent shows and battalion talent contests. Now, every Saturday night, all the lads travelled on the Star Ferry and collected together in the Cheero Club in Hong Kong, which was a serviceman's hangout. And it stood, you know, Richard, where the Hilton now stands.
Okay.
If it's still there, of course.
But yeah, who knows? Yes.
Now, the contest, which was called Beginners Please, was sponsored by the tobacco company Philip Morrison. So the winners would get 200 of the company's cigarettes and a paltry 10 Hong Kong dollars. But of course, the big draw was the grand prize of a half-hour show on rediffusion, which was the local commercial radio station. Now, Terry, as he was known back then, he took part in the club's weekly talent night and he won. But after 7 unprecedented wins, the organisers banned him from entering the competition as he was considered too much of a dead cert. And the sponsors were worried that the contest would look rigged.
Which it probably was. I knew the compere. And
But some of the squaddies who were there to support him complained that it wasn't fair and that he was a serviceman and he had a right to enter. So the promoter's solution to the problem was to offer Terry his own residency on one of their programmes on Radio Hong Kong. Now, do you remember John Wallace was the compere, but he also worked at RTHK, considered him good enough to be booked as a resident guest on the radio station. And eventually, of course, Rediffusion gave him his own programme, Terry Parsons Sings.
Yes, indeed. And it's good. We've actually got one of those. There's one survives. It was only the second earliest recording of Matt to survive, and it's the final edition of the show, and it was made on the 27th of June 1953 at Rediffusion Studios, and it's a 15-minute show. It's spread across 3 acetate discs, and it was probably made to him just as a gift because it was his last show. He was about to leave Hong Kong, and it's put on what's called an acetate disc, which is also known as a lacquer. It's strange that they're known as acetates, actually, because there isn't any acetate in them. It's actually an aluminium disc covered in nitrocellulose lacquer.
Those are ones that are brittle, right?
It's not as bad as that, because shellac discs that you got 78s, they're quite brittle. But because these had an aluminium disc at the core, made them quite strong. The thing is that the lacquer that they put on it has, over the years, this has started to shrink on some acetates, and that's what's happened to your dad's copies of the disc. And it means that the discs that we've got are pretty much unplayable. All the lacquer on top of the disc is sort of cracking and starting to flake away. And we've had various attempts at trying to play them over the years, and haven't really got anywhere. But then, when I was transferring some tapes for you at one point, we discovered, as luck would have it, that your dad had somebody copy them to tape for him, probably as early as the 1960s. And that it's a reasonably good transfer. And so thankfully, we've actually got a copy of the show, even though the discs are completely unplayable.
I'm confessing that I love you. Tell me, do you love me too? I'm confessing that I need you. Honest, I do.
Terry Parsons Sings. Instead of the advertised program Country Fair, we bring you now a short broadcast by the popular singer Terry Parsons, who is leaving Hong Kong next week, with Hal at the piano and Frankie and Tommy with bass and guitar. First, Terry sings All of Me, followed by Irving Berlin's How Deep is the Ocean?
Yeah, well, I mean, anything that we have is so rarely sort of found, and it's just like having a treasure, isn't it?
Well, it is, because, I mean, you wouldn't really expect for a radio show from that time, to survive in any way, shape or form. So, I mean, we were really lucky that somebody at the radio station had the foresight to record that show and give it to your dad to take home with him.
Well, of course, that's how we have Dad's concert, his only surviving concert that we released on DVD, because they gave it to him.
Yes.
And he brought it home in one of those old canisters of, the old reel-to-reel things. And it was in the garage for 18 years after he died.
And this is a good thing
Unmarked,
about your dad.
though.
Yeah, your dad was a bit of a hoarder, and there's quite a few things. As we'll discover, actually, some of the other things we're going to talk about today only survive thanks to your dad. So, anyway, we'll carry on with the story about Hong Kong for the moment.
Well, just a bit of background for the listeners. Radio Hong Kong had 3 stations. So you had Radio Hong Kong, commercial radio and rediffusion. Now, Ted Thomas was working for Government Radio Hong Kong, and John Wallace and Ray Cordero also worked there as DJs. And Ted and Ray were responsible for producing the Forces talent show at the Chiro Club, which was at Murray Barracks in Garden Road. Now, the programme was a regular feature, and it was broadcast over the colony. And, of course, Craftsman Parsons became reasonably well known. His success gained him lots of offers, from troupe entertaining to cabaret work. Now, he was singing one of the Serviceman's Club when he was spotted and asked to front the dance band at a local club in the Star Hotel in Kowloon. And the man who gave him the job was Bin Rodriguez, who played tenor sax and went on to become one of Terry's dearest friends. And it was a friendship that would carry on throughout the years. Now, Terry finished the last 18 months of his career in Hong Kong, singing with the dance bands, earning more as a singer than his monies from the army. His weekly wage in the army was 60 Hong Kong dollars and 1,000 a month with the dance band. He always said it was the highest paid squaddy in the British Army.
Yeah, well, this probably leads to the fact, and you didn't know this, did you, until we started to make The Boy from Shoreditch. It's still available to listen to on YouTube, guys. And we found that audio clip of him talking about the fact that he had his own flat in Hong Kong. You knew nothing about that until I uncovered that interview, did you?
No, that was amazing.
Well, of course, in those days, I had a flat in Hong Kong anyway. My superiors would be horrified to know, but I had a rather lovely flat in Kowloon at the time.
Leading on to that, so there was a constant 1 a.m. curfew in place, and Dad was always busted for overstaying the curfew, but most gigs didn't finish until 1:15, and he had to sign in and out of the guard room, and he went out the front gate without checking out, which was easy as he knew the guards on duty. The trouble was he couldn't get back in quite as easily, as the front gates were lit up with guards on the entry, and the officer of the day, or the sergeant major, may have been floating around, so he used to come in over the wire at the back of the compound. Now, the night before his very first rediffusion broadcast, Dad returned to his unit later than his pass allowed. And coming in over the back, he jumped straight into the arms of his regimental sergeant major. And of course, he was promptly placed under house arrest and sent to the cells. Now, lucky for Dad, he was on fairly good terms with his CO, so he persuaded him to allow his appearance at a broadcast that had already been booked. But the condition was that 2 armed guards had to escort him to the radio station and stand either side of him throughout the broadcast. Now, the story goes that the CO listened to the radio programme and must have enjoyed it, because on his return to barracks, the charges had been dismissed. But Daddy always said the army interfered with his career. But in fact, it came out that to do with that programme, he had gone to the flat and changed into civvies, and the 2 guards that escorted him were friends of his, so they all had a little drink. Off they went, and they went back and changed back into their uniforms. So, they got away with a lot.
I coerced my guard, and we sort of got down to my flat and I changed into civilian clothes, did the show, had a riotous evening on the town afterwards, came back to my flat, had a few more drinks there, got changed into my army uniform, went back to barracks, and nobody ever knew the difference. It was rather marvellous, actually.
But another colleague who hosted the radio show, which was called the Hospital Request Hour on rediffusion, was Pat Sefton, and she had also been newly appointed as a hostess at a new club on the scene called Bottoms Up, famous for being featured in one of the James Bond films. And she invited the boys to the club and became a firm friend of Terry's. And in fact, I've told you this story many times. Dad took me there years later when we were en route to performing concerts in Jakarta. Now, I was very young, you know, and Pat Sefton welcomed us, and within the club there was quite a few round bars with a topless girl in each entertaining the drinkers. It was an experience for me, you know. I was sort of a little bit shocked. But upon leaving, Dad disclosed the girls were in fact all men. So I said, could we go back so I could have another look? But he wouldn't let me. But the bar became notorious because its appearance in the 1974 James Bond movie, The Man with the Golden Gun. Now, at the time of the film, the club was located on the Kowloon side of Victoria Harbour. But when Roger Moore is picked up outside the club by British agents posing as police and is told he is being taken to a police station on the Kowloon side of Hong Kong Harbour, he's in fact already there, which I think is hilarious. Now, capitalising, of course, on his newfound fame, Dad formed a small theatrical group in Hong Kong called the Do Re Mi's, with Dorothy Hart Baker and Mina Silas, and they used to perform regular troupe shows every Saturday night at the YMCA in Salisbury Road, Kowloon. In fact, Daddy cut his first ever disc singing Pagliacci with Mina at piano.
To be gay, when my brain's reeling with madness, not knowing the things I say or what I'm doing. Still must I force myself, but I must be a man.
Yes, and that's On With the Motley, as it translates to Vesti la Juba. And it's another acetate. This is actually Matt's very first recording. And it's fared somewhat better, thankfully, than Terry Parsons Sings. It's pretty good condition. It's what's termed as an instantaneous disc. It may have been made on a professional machine, but on the other hand, there were portable machines that you could buy in those days as well. So who knows where it was done? It could have been at Radio Hong Kong or Rediffusion, or it could even just been somebody had managed to bring it into the barracks. I don't know. And the discs are instantly recognisable because they have two holes in them. They have the central hole, as you would expect on a record, but there's also a second hole by the side, and this is to make sure, because it's a shiny disc on a platter, that when the groove is being cut into it, that the disc doesn't slip, so it just keeps it going round. So that's why it's got two holes in it. And so this is made onto it's a shiny black lacquer disc, and you use a needle just in the same way that an old gramophone used to work on a lathe, a special lathe, to draw the groove into the disc. And these discs, funnily enough, strange as it may seem, considering we was going to end up recording with EMI, these discs were actually made by EMI in the first place, would you believe? And the disc has come back, and if you want to see a picture of the disc, actually, we've put the whole of On With the Motley up on our YouTube channel, and there's a picture of the where the label of the disc would be on that video. It doesn't have a label as such. I think was added later on. It just came back completely blank. So it's a good job somebody actually had the foresight to listen to it and find out what it was at some point.
Yeah, it's brilliant that we've got it, actually, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, after being demobbed, Terry returned to England and took up employment with his probably most famous job with London Transport, moonlighting in the evening with the local bands around the East End of London. Well, he auditioned with Harry Leader and he joined the orchestra as lead singer. And whilst touring, Terry and a few of the lads in the band decided to stop in at Bigger's studio in Glasgow and lay down a demo.
Ah, yes. And that was Polka Dots and Moondreams. And on the other side, I Hear Music.
A country dance was being held in a garden. I felt a bump and heard an "oh, beg your pardon." Suddenly I saw polka dots and moon.
And that was, Biggest Studios in Glasgow. Was actually, well, it sounds like it was a big recording studio. It wasn't. It was above a music store in Sauchiehall Street.
Does it still exist?
Well, it did until recently. I've actually looked into this, knowing we were going to talk about this today. And the shop existed, although in a different location, on Sauchiehall Street until only a few years ago. And then they moved to a place outside of town, and it seems, unfortunately, that they have since ceased to exist, but they were the longest known music shop in the whole of Scotland. It opened in 1867 by Alexander Bigger.
Wow.
And it was at 102 Sauchiehall Street, which was where your dad recorded his disc. And do you know what that building is now?
No.
It's a Greggs.
Oh, sausage roll, please.
Indeed. So, yes, if you go to Greggs on Sauchiehall Street, you are going to buy your sausage roll from the place where Matt made the disc that famously got him a recording contract.
So if you go there, send us a photo, a selfie of yourself outside Greggs.
And it's interesting. The disc it wasn't made to tape. The recording wasn't made to tape, just like the other things, the other acetates like the Terry Parsons Sings and the Pagliacci. It was cut straight to disc, and this was all very well, but it had its disadvantages because these 10-inch discs that you made only held about 3.5 minutes, and so Polka Dots and Moonbeams actually fades out at the end because they were running out of space on the disc, and it was the needle was getting towards where the label would be, and so they literally just had to fade it out and switch the machine off because it was going on too long.
Fabulous. I mean, the thing was, Daddy wasn't used to... He was used to singing everywhere by this time, but not to hearing his own voice back. And he hated the demo. I mean, really hated it. But Boogie Woogie's finest, Winifred Atwell, didn't agree because one of the musicians had sent her the disc and she immediately made contact with Dad. Well, that was the start of an outstanding career, and of course, with the name change from Decca Records, Matt Monro was catapulted to stardom. Now, Matt was taken from the very first journalist to write about him, Matt White, and Monro came from Winifred Atwell's father, Monro Atwell.
Sorry, can I just butt in here? Because
No.
You said... Well, I'm going to.
All right.
You said about this Matt not liking the sound of his own voice, but it's interesting because actually he had made another recording prior to the Bigger's recording. Back in August 1955, he recorded Strange Lady in Town with the Harry Leader Band. It's the only recording we know that he made with the Harry Leader Band. He made it for a little label called Top Hits of the Month, which was it was a mail order label where you could get sort of cheap cover versions. They used to put 6 songs on one disc, and it was released on 2 different discs. There was a popular Hit Parade disc and another one. They later reissued it as Hillbilly Favourites of all strange things, and that was his recording of Strange Lady in Town. And it was not just issued in the UK, it was also issued in Canada, and the Canadian version is a different take to the UK version. It's but you say, so having, maybe that is what led him think to, oh well, maybe I'll try and do another recording, which is why he went to Biggers. I don't know.
Strange lady in town, strange lady in town. She's all that any man could ever hope and pray for. If I were king, I'd trade my crown for that strange, strange lady in town.
Anyway, there's quite a lot to learn about that recording of Top Hits of the Month. I did quite a lot of research into that a few years back, and there's a whole article about that on the website, and I'll put a link of that in the show's description so people can look at that in a bit more detail if they want to.
Well, the thing is, I don't think anybody likes to hear themselves back.
No, I certainly don't.
And it's like, well, you don't know, but actors don't like to see their own performances a lot of the time. So it wasn't just Dad.
No, that's true.
You know, but it was funny because so he came back, he was now Matt Monro, etc., etc. But several years later, a phone call came from one of Dad's close Army Day pals, Ray Cadiro, garbling an excitable message about him having to come back to Hong Kong. Or details confirmed, Dad left for Hong Kong to take part in Operation Santa Claus, which was a one-day charity concert with the entire journey involving some 20,000 miles. But it was something of a sentimental journey for Dad, so he could remember the great times of his youth.
It's, that's another thing. Another one of these cases of your dad keeping something that we've been able to issue that wouldn't otherwise have survived, because we've got that fab concert recording of Operation Santa Claus, the concert that he did, because it seems that the radio station that taped it gave him a copy, gave him the they may even well have been the master tapes, who knows, gave him a copy of the tapes straight after the recording before he came home again. And he kept those for all of those years, and thankfully we now have been able to issue that on a CD called Operation Santa Claus, still available from Mint Audio Records if you want to find it. With some great
I think
notes.
it's a great album, actually.
It is, and it has some fab notes by somebody called Michele something. I can't remember who that is, but anyway, it's still available, Mint Audio Records, and it's a really good concert. And we've put some great other things on that have come from Hong Kong. We've got an interview by his friend Ted Thomas that was done at the same time as the concert. It's quite a nifty little package we've got, and once again, thankfully, survived because of your dad happening to squirrel these things away. I mean, it amazes me really that he kept them, because considering he didn't like to really listen to them, and you know, he talks about Pagliacci as being horrible, and he talks about Terry Parsons Sings being horrible, but he kept them all.
Well, I love, one of my favourites is on the track, which is Bill Bailey. You know, and it there are other songs on certain albums that he's come up again and again, but of course Bill Bailey, that was a one-off really, and I just love it. You know, I think it's a really good album when considering that it was literally just taped while he was there, you know.
That's right.
Live.
Yeah, yes.
And of course you transferred and restored and remastered it, thank goodness. And yeah, it's a good listen.
It is.
Won't you come home to Whaley? Please come home. She moans and groans the whole day long. Now I said I'll do the cooking, honey. I'll pay the rent.
Recommend it. It's also on streaming services and download services if anybody wants to listen to it that way.
Plug, yeah.
Plug, absolutely. Why not?
Somebody's
got to plug it.
You're right. Well, the event was recorded, and Dad made his Hong Kong television debut in what was called The Late Late Show, and it was produced by John Bowe, and he sang Portrait, of course, My Love and Devotion, What Kind of Fool. But actually the most warmly applauded of them all was What Now, My Love?
And that's interesting because it's something he never recorded. I know, that must have been because of Shirley Bassey's recording of it at around the same time. I would have thought that he must have picked it up from there. But yeah, I've never heard that. I would like to hear that.
It's a bit like when he used to work in the Philippines. You know, they would stand and cheer and stomp when he was singing his ballads. But if he sang an up-tempo number, they would sit and politely applaud. They didn't want up-tempo, they wanted ballads.
Yeah.
And in fact, my brother went over there several years after Dad passed away, and he had to change his whole repertoire. He said they were all sitting down politely. Nothing's changed. They're a city of ballad lovers, or a country of ballad lovers, you know.
Yes.
But anyway, the newspaper reported, which I love this, a quote, "The crowds built over the course of the day, and Matt had hordes of children and families following him around the streets of the colony. By the time it came to the show, the venue was jammed tight, full of expectancy. Spotlights lit the lone man on the platform stage, and the room was still. The eyes of the singer were closed as musical words of romance split from his lips across an audience of silent worshippers. He didn't look like any other idols of his world of jukebox gods, being short and stocky with a haircut that made him look square in the eyes of the teenager who whims create and topple the top 10. The singer had no tricks, no clanging guitars stimulate the voice, and no withering hips or flaying arms supplement the spotlit vision. Here was a singer whose gimmick was his outstanding vocal talent. Matt Monro simply closed his eyes and sang songs of love, and suddenly defied the rules of jukebox stardom. Hong Kong fell in love with their god. And by the time he left Hong Kong for the second time, Dad had become one of the best known and most demanded entertainers in the Crown Colony.
That was a good write-up. You don't get write-ups like that in the newspapers anymore, do you, about anyone?
No, you don't.
Oh, it was really eloquently put.
Well, I've got some absolute beautiful write-ups over the years. I mean, as you know, I've got over 1 million press cuttings, all stored and filed. And yeah, there's been some amazing reviews, if you like. And
Yeah.
it makes me realise, you know, in a day where sort of rock and roll had come in, and as they say, you had people gesticulating across a stage with guitars in tow. It didn't matter. Do you remember Shindig?
Yes.
And they had
that's
all
right.
the big bands on of the day, and Dad comes on with a ballad. But he was big. It's like he was on Top of the Pops several times.
I know, yeah. So once again, something that doesn't exist anywhere unless anybody out there has got it. We've got a recording of one of the Top of the Pops, and not that it's very enlightening because it was the days when they used to mime to the records. So it's a recording of somebody introducing the record, basically, to which he would have mimed. You can't really tell what he would have been doing on screen, unfortunately, but
It's interesting because Daddy met Val Doonigan when he was recording Top of the Pops. He'd never met him before. In fact, it was Val Doonigan's first hit. And we were talking about the rocking chair. And Dad loved, you know, the sort of thing that was his I don't know what his sidekick, so to speak. And because of that, Dad went to the same guy who made the rocking chair, who made him his stage stool, which of course we've still got. He used
absolutely.
it every performance. It went around the world with him many, many times.
Yes, I have been privileged to transport that stool on a couple of occasions. So yes, absolutely.
Amazing,
Right.
isn't it?
It is.
So there you go. That's really his great time. I mean, his best times, he always said, you know, because he even spent his 21st birthday in Hong Kong, you know. It made him a man, and he said it was one of the happiest times of his life, really, that whole period. He loved the army. He would have signed up again for another 7 years, but they couldn't guarantee that he'd go back to Hong Kong. And in fact, one of them mentioned Germany, which of course is incredibly cold in the winters.
Yes.
And Dad didn't fancy the chance of that.
No, I can imagine. It's no, and who knows that he could have seen some action somewhere as well, and I'm sure he wouldn't have fancied that particularly.
No. Well, of course, they didn't know if they would see action wherever they went.
No, I suppose.
But, you know, it was the camaraderie. Because, as you know, when he was young, he was very nervous, withdrawn. He placed in a foster home. It really made him, well, very withdrawn. He was biting his nails. And, you know, the army gave him confidence. It gave him very, very good, staunch friends for life. So, yeah, it stayed with him.
Good. Well, I think that sort of brings this episode to a close.
It does.
And, yeah, let's see what we can think of to talk about next month. And, of course, if you have any ideas about what we could talk about, if you want to know about something, or you have some stories yourself, or some rare recordings, or anything like that, you can always get in touch with us. We are here to be spoken to. Nicely, I hope. And all you have to do, and let's see if I can actually get my teeth in right to say it this week, all you have to do is email pod, at mattmonroe.com. Now, Michelle, what is that? Can you remember what it's called? See if you can get it right.
What?
The email address. I'll say it again.
Yeah,
pod
one you've
at
just
Matt
said.
Monroe. Yeah, pod at mattmonroe.com.
Pod.
That one.
Pod at mattmonroe.com.
That's the one. Okay, yes. It's not just me who's got to try and get it right, you know.
All right. I didn't realise I had to say it as well.
Oh, no, well, I just thought I'd surprise you with that one. I'll say, you have to keep you on your toes, you know.
Yeah, but you see, I've always got my teeth in. That's the point. Pod at mattmonroe.com, and we'll see you next month. Take care. Have a great time.
Bye-bye.